Hey, what is up guys, GuitarRock here, welcome back to another Girls Frontline 2 video. So Phaetusa is coming really soon. We have her banner available on May 14th, so that's going to be a couple of days. So let's talk about her and her weapon, which I do encourage a lot of you guys to pull. These are going to be very important if you are looking to build corrosion team. Now with Phaetusa coming in, your corrosion team is going to be even stronger than before. If you guys are not aware, right, we got Kluke, Matchty, a bunch of characters set in stone already, right? So I'm sure all of you guys are probably very excited for her if you're looking for meta, because I know a lot of players do have their own Kluke. So with that, let's talk about how strong is Phaetusa in this particular video, right? We're going to jump into her kits, what she can do, and what's going to be her best dupe, right? If you ever want to get additional copies whatsoever. So she might be a little bit expensive depending on how it is. As per usual, my advice is, if you're unsure, the best way to approach this is just wait for a little bit until they announce the next banner after Phaetusa, right? So after that, then maybe you can make a better decision, because for now, we are not aware who is coming next, right? Now first things first, she's going to be a melee character. So if you guys are pre-farming for her, make sure you are farming the right set, right? You can still use for corrosion boost if you want to, but close assault is going to be her best attachments, right? So that's going to be the one that's recommended. As per usual, go with all of these attack percent, crit rate, crit damage percent, right? She's going to need that in particular. So when it comes to, as you can see, her basic attack is pretty simple. She just do 1 melee damage. So that means she's going to be, as one of the sword user, very cool in a way, right? The way she moves around and stuff is very fluid. We really don't have much melee character, right? So if you guys love the concept of, you know, Phaetusa as a whole, then it's encouraged to pull her, right? Because the last time we had this was during the launch of GFL2, right? We ever had a limited character that's like a melee or blade user. That was Alrit. So there's not much of them. So hopefully with Phaetusa, that's going to bring a little bit of blade meta into the equation. Her skill 1, as you can see, selects 1 tile within a cross-shaped area of 8 tiles, right? Then she can basically land the selected tile. She does AoE corrosion melee damage equal to 90% to all enemy targets on the path, alright? Not just one target, but all in a straight line. So this can be quite useful depending on how it is. Now granted, it is going to be quite difficult depending on how it is, right? Because like, to get the enemies lined up in one line is going to be quite difficult as well. But still, it's going to be very good. As you can see, her skill 2 is going to be where this is going to get a little bit more complex, right? Now she gained 1 stack of Blade Resonance and apply Laceration to all enemy targets on the field for 2 turns. Alright, now Blade Resonance is a buff, Laceration is a debuff, right? After this particular skill, she gains extra command and she can move again. Now Blade Resonance, what is going to be that particular thing? So basically, she consumes 1 stack to increase the damage multiplier of Twin Paradise. That's going to be her ultimate skill or her third skill, right? Stacks up to 3 times. So ideally, you want to apply this first, skill 2 first, before you move on to skill 3, right? Laceration debuff, what does that do? You can see when taking damage, if the attacker uses a blade attack, it deals additional damage equal to 40% of the original damage each time damage is dealt. So she applies this debuff to the enemy. So I guess in the future, if we ever need to like switch to a blade team, maybe that's going to be something that is going to make her like a core, right? I'm not sure if that's going to be even possible, because we are most likely going to lean towards an elemental in terms of the characters rather than like a melee or range team, right? But if there's any other corrosion melee characters in the future, then you also benefit from that, right? So yeah, that's the debuff that basically increase melee damage taken, right? So last but not least, we have the Twin Paradise. Alright, this is going to be her ultimate skill. AoE melee corrosion damage equal to 90% of attack power to all enemies within 5 tile radius. So that's again very good. Consumes all sticks of Blade Resonance. That's going to be the thing that you apply on your skill 2, alright? And then for each stack consumed, increase the damage multiplier of the skill by 10%. And then additionally doubles on that basis. Now what makes her V1 really strong, now you can see, right? Because the more Blade Resonance you get, the more she's able to do with her ultimate skill, right? More damage. So for V1, every 2 skill users Phaetusa will gain an additional stack of Blade Resonance, and her critical damage will be permanently increased by 15%. So her V1 is actually really good, right? So 15% crit damage permanent, and also like every 2 skill use, boom, she gets 1 additional stack of Blade Resonance. This is going to improve her rotation, is going to improve a little bit of her damage overall. So if you can afford to go V1, that's ideally going to be a very good stopping point, right? For a lot of players, I would say V1 is highly recommended. But before we jump into more of her dupes, let's just talk about the passive skill. Alright, she gains 1 stat point of Confectance Index each time melee damage is dealt. Very, very good. This effect can be activated 3 times per round. When an enemy within range takes damage from allied AoE attack, now keep in mind, it has to be AoE attack specifically. That means, fortunately, Kluke does AoE attack, right? Even Paritia's ultimate skill as well, or third skill, right? So those are going to be something that you can basically benefit from, right? She's going to perform an action support if the ally does AoE attack, right? Her action support also deal AoE melee corrosion damage equal to 90% and 1 point of stability damage. Now this effect can be activated 3 times per round, alright? So if you have multiple AoE characters, Kluke usually will be able to move twice, right? You just zoom in and zoom back. So that's like already 2 times. After activation, the skill Mirror Trap, active skill companionship becomes available, alright? Upon activation, gains the effect of True Form and Extra Command. Can be used once per battle. So you can see right now, Mirror Trap is going to be the skill 2, right? So when she activates skill 2, she also gains this thing, the companionship. So all of these are going to give her a bunch of overall solid damage potential, right? Now let's talk about her dupes then, right? With the V1 that I mentioned earlier, more Blade Resonance, that means her ultimate skill is going to be able to do more because she's going to get more of that stack, right? Now for V2, this one in my opinion is not going to be that crazy, alright? Increased damage multiplier for her skill 2 and also the width increased by 2 times. So that means now instead of just 1 thin line, she's going to be able to hit way more. Now I think it's going to be very, very good, but it's not as impressive of what she gets on V3. Increase the number of times companionship can be used per battle by 1, that's number 1. After gaining the effect of True Form, attack increased by 50%. So now she's going to be able to get way more buffs, right? Companionship and of course True Form, this is going to give you quite a lot of crazy stuff, right? I would say V1 then V3 is going to be the next like sort of jump. V4 again improve her skill, and for V5 her support action is going to increase a little bit. But V6 is where it gets super crazy, alright? This is going to be for, you know, she will gain this particular new buff, Tempered Blood, where the next active attack is going to increase by 200%. This is going to increase her damage significantly, right? So what you're not aware is like every time she's able to activate that, that's going to be for her skill 2, right? Ideally, like I mentioned, you want to use a skill 2 into the ultimate skill, right? That means the ultimate skill is going to do way more damage. That 200%, that's a lot, right? That's like crazy amounts of damage. So definitely that's going to be something that you want to pay attention to, right? Now let's talk about the weapon choices, right? For a lot of players, the recommendation is to get V1 plus R1. Alright, if you can get that, that will be highly recommended, right? So this is something that you're gonna see a lot of people encourage you to do because the weapon is just that good, right? AoE damage increased by 5%. If the corrosion AoE damage is dealt, the AoE damage cost is increased by additional 5%. Now I think it's gonna come down to which weapon you have currently, because right now I think the conversation is, should you V1 her or R1 her, right? Ideally you want to get both. Alright, the recommendation is going to be V1 and R1, but if you have to pick one, if you have to pick one dupe or her weapon, it's going to depend on the weapon that you use on her, right? If you don't have any other weapon, then of course her weapon is going to be the best in slot. However, if you happen to have Rectix, right? If you have Ulrich's signature weapon, I feel like you can get away with using that, and then you can prioritize her V1 right there. Alright, so definitely go for the V1 as opposed for the R1. Like even right here, they recommend you to go for the Dupe 1 first because that's going to give you much more benefit. The truth is, if you don't really have Ulrich's weapon, the next best one is going to be Crown Jackalope, and that one is going to be, I believe, from the Battle Pass as well, which is going to be very, very hard, right? But the other free-to-play options are going to be Grey Thorns, Pluma Edge, or Hair. So there's not much good free-to-play option weapon for her, and she's going to do substantially quite a lot of damage, right? Now this is a CN team showcasing a Kluke V6 versus a V0 Phaetusa, right? Just to give you guys a little bit of damage comparison. At V0, she's gonna do about, let's see, I would say she does about 1/4 of Kluke's damage, but you can see in this particular team, they also have Sextons right here that is way more invested as well, right? So I would say her damage potential is quite high, but for most players, Kluke is still going to be the highly invested one, the V6 R1 kind of character. For those of you, if you cannot afford to do a bunch of pulls on Phaetusa, I wouldn't worry about it, right? So V1 R1, definitely a good stopping point for most players, alright? And then you can start saving for the next meta character. That's going to be Groza, right? And I think a lot of players might be looking forward to her as well because she's just that broken. Now when it comes to a team right now, obviously you can have all of these cast of characters with Kluke, Lin, Maxti, and of course Peritia, right? But in the CN, just keep in mind that Match-T and Peritia is slowly getting phased out, right? We got Basti over there, and there's also going to be like you saw earlier, there are going to be teams that use Sextans instead, right? And of course, once Groza comes as well, she's going to be quite flexible. She will fit into every team. So that will be something that if you want to consider like a good investment, those are going to be the ones, right? So all in all, you gotta ask yourself, if you are looking to seriously build a Corrosion team, there's definitely ways for Phaetusa to shine, definitely, right? So I did pull for Helen, so I don't really have too much funds to try to go for like crazy amounts. I'll definitely try to get one copy, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to get additional one at V1. That's going to be a little bit pricey, right? So yeah, that's going to be it for this particular video. Subscribe if you guys haven't already. Give this video a like if you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.